Did Christianity really come to India 2,000 years ago, brought by none other than one of Jesus' own apostles? You've probably heard the story. St. Thomas the Apostle landed in Kerala, converted locals, built churches, and was finally martyred in Mylapore by hostile Brahmins. But what if I told you that this story is a complete myth? Let's dive deep into one of the most persistent and politically protected falsehoods in Indian history, the myth of St. Thomas in India, an inconvenient truth. Let's get this straight. Hinduism is the indigenous tradition of India, in its philosophy, geography, and cultural identity. Christianity, on the other hand, is a foreign import. This isn't about hate, it's about history. But here's the catch. The moment Hinduism becomes a minority, it becomes as irrelevant to the land as the ancient pagan faiths of Greece or Mesopotamia. And the agenda to make it irrelevant? It starts by erasing Hinduism's antiquity and exaggerating Christianity's presence in India. Jawaharlal Nehru said in 1936 that Christianity arrived in India in the 1st century CE. Even Prime Minister Modi in 2020 echoed the same idea while speaking to the Kanyakumari Church. But where is the evidence? Two brave voices have challenged this myth with rigorous scholarship. Ishwar Sharan, a Canadian-born Hindu monk, and Jeevan Philip, a meticulous researcher. Let's start with Ishwar Sharan. His book The Myth of St. Thomas and the Mylapore Shiva Temple dismantles the St. Thomas story with clarity and courage. He points out that the story of Thomas converting locals and being martyred by Brahmins in Mylapore is a political tool, a colonial narrative used to vilify Hindus, especially Brahmins. And here's the twist, Ishwar Sharan is not a Brahmin, not even Indian by birth. He's a former Protestant Christian who embraced Hinduism in 1977. His research reveals that the earliest Christians arrived in India not in the 1st century, but in 345 CE, as refugees from Syria, led by a man named Thomas of Cana, not the apostle. These Syrian Christians were welcomed, protected, and lived peacefully with Hindus, until the Portuguese arrived. And then, things changed. The supposed evidence of early Christianity in India, let's talk about crosses. According to Jeevan Philip in his groundbreaking book Unmasking the Syriacs, every single Christian cross in India, including the famous Mount Cross in Mylapore, dates no earlier than the 9th century CE. Even the so-called St. Thomas cross, discovered in 1547 CE, turns out it's not even a Christian cross, but a Manichaean symbol from Persia. That's right, these crosses don't represent Christianity. They represent a now extinct, dualistic Persian religion founded by a prophet named Mani, who considered Zoroaster, Buddha, Jesus, and himself as avatars of truth. He preached reincarnation and condemned meat and wine. Does this sound like Christianity to you? So how did the myth of St. Thomas evolve? Simple. The Syrian Christians who arrived in 345 CE gradually started associating themselves with the Apostle Thomas. By the 13th century, this tale was picked up by Marco Polo, and later weaponized by the Portuguese to Christianize Kerala. And the so-called Tomb of St. Thomas? The first reference is in 1502 CE, and that too places it in Sri Lanka, not India. All the ancient churches, martyrdom stories, and Thomas legends began circulating after Portuguese colonization. Even the famed Ramban Patu, the ballad that supposedly narrates Thomas's journey, was composed no earlier than the 16th century. You may have seen recent headlines about the grand renovation of the Thiruvithamcode Arappally Church in Kanyakumari. It's being hailed by sections of the media as the oldest church in India, allegedly founded by St. Thomas the Apostle himself. Sounds ancient, sounds sacred, but here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no historical or archaeological evidence that Thomas the Apostle ever came to India. This entire tale of Thomas preaching in Kerala, converting Brahmins and founding churches, is a manufactured legend. Even the Pope in Rome publicly admitted that the story of Thomas coming to India in the 1st century was fabricated. But when the powerful church lobby in Kerala protested, the Vatican withdrew the statement. Truth sometimes seems negotiable when faith and politics mix. So if Thomas didn't come to India, when did Christianity arrive? As we've seen, it was in the 4th century CE, when Syrian Christians were expelled from Persia by Emperor Shapur II. Why? Because they were suspected of colluding with the Christian Roman Empire, betraying their homeland. These Syrian refugees were welcomed by Hindu kings in Kerala, given land, titles, and protection, and allowed to thrive for centuries. But history took another turn. When the Portuguese arrived, many of these once peaceful migrants allied with the colonizers, turning on the very civilization that gave them refuge. And here comes another myth. Many Syrian Christians today claim they are descendants of Namboodiri Brahmins converted by Thomas. It sounds prestigious, it sounds ancient, but there's zero historical evidence for this claim. Studies and church records themselves show that most conversions occurred among the Ajava, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities of Kerala. Jeevan Philip nails it. He says these stories are bedtime legends of Syriac Christianity, with no archaeological evidence, no continuity of language or culture, and no historical record before the 9th century. Compare that with the Jews or Parsis, who maintained their identity for millennia in India. The Syrian Christian stories? Nothing. No West Asian culture, no language, no trace. So what are we left with? A myth, a weaponized story. A tale built by colonizers, endorsed by politicians, and rarely questioned by scholars. But now, we are questioning it. This isn't about attacking a religion, it's about defending history. The same way the Aryan invasion theory was used to divide India. The Thomas in India myth is used to appropriate Indian antiquity, distort Hindu identity, and vilify native traditions. Let the truth be told, Christianity did not arrive in India with an apostle in the 1st century. It came much later, as a migrant faith, welcomed by a tolerant Hindu society. And that's where the real story begins. These aren't just historical details, they shape identity, power, and politics. When stories of conversion, martyrdom, and ancient apostleship are woven into education and media, unchecked, they can distort the soul of a civilization. Let's be clear, the Thiruvithamcode Church is not 2,000 years old. St. Thomas never set foot in India. The Roman Church knows this, and has said as much. And the roots of Indian Christianity are in Persia, not Palestine. It's time we replace myth with memory and fantasy with facts.